Okay, we continue on with our overview of the book. The title of the book is The Pursuit of Human Well-Being, The Untold Global History. Um, the book is published by Springer very recently, and I'm one of the editors of the book. My name is Joseph Sergi, and the other editor is Richard Estes. And what we're going to do is we're going to focus on chapter 12 and give you a sort of a feel for what this chapter is about. The title of this chapter is The History of Well-Being in Southeast Asia. Again, Southeast Asia. The authors of the chapter are Maharmangas and Edilberto de Isis. Dr. Mangas is the president of Social Weather Station in Manila, Philippines, and Edilberto de Isis is a professor emeritus of the Asian Institute of Management, also located in Manila, Philippines. So allow me just to, read to you a couple of introductory paragraphs, and that would give you a flavor of what the chapter is about. The well-being of Southeast Asia region in the early 21st century is the net outcome of centuries of diverse histories. The peoples of Southeast Asia began to exercise independent self-government, which is itself an element of well-being, only in the latter half of the 20th century. Thus, this story begins with the discussion of the impact of colonization by the various Western powers. The centuries of foreign occupation that underlay the formation of the present nation states were not a benign preparation for independence. Colonization was a force that, in many ways, harmed and hindered, though in some ways also promoted, the well-being of indigenous and immigrant peoples in the region. The second part of the story is the rapid emergence of modern Southeast Asia after the Second World War, as the countries acquired their independence in line with the global movement towards decolonization. The task of consolidating their governments, in many cases, after further violent conflicts engendered by the Cold War, took a quarter century or more, and for some countries is not completed. The timing, pace, and pattern of colonization, and the motives and the means used to establish control followed no simple template. In the Philippines, for example, Spain and the United States imposed the model of central direct rule. In the Malay Peninsula, on the other hand, England exercised indirect rule, governing through indigenous political structures and their officials. In both cases, the colonial powers had to enroll indigenous staff in governance, and the degree of central control conformed to the conditions on the ground and to the competence of the colonial officials in charge. Under either model, extensive contact and collaboration with the colonial government became a source of power. But in a region with a multiplicity of ethno-linguistic communities, indirect rule gave better chances for the indigenous officials and their dominant ethnic group, often later immigrants to the territory, to consolidate their power over the smaller communities of the first peoples, and independence permitted this established elite to maintain their dominance. Although compressed over a shorter period, the process of decolonization affected by colonial policies, the impact of the Second World War, and the complications of Cold War politics presented newly independent nations with different set of challenges. Colonization and decolonization gave these nations different starting points but did not determine their respective present-day conditions of well-being. Each nation owns the result of its own governance efforts. The historical overview provides a necessary context to appreciate the well-being of Southeast Asian peoples, according to available quantitative tools originally developed in advanced countries to chart their own progress along health, education, income, and other welfare dimensions, while taking for granted certain basic standards of democracy, the rule of law, public security, and accountable governance. Well-being is a moving target, located by multiple indicators defined by the expectations of each society and the daily challenges of life that its people confront. Statistics help to clarify the situation and identify the problems of social development in Southeast Asia. So what is Southeast Asia? I'm looking at a map and a chart where I spell out the countries involved in that region. And these are Singapore, Malaysia, Laos, Vietnam, Indonesia, Timor-Leste, and Cambodia, Thailand, the Philippines, and Myanmar. So these are the countries that comprise Southeast Asia, and the chapter gets so much into the details, exploring describing the dimensions of well-being um, in this region as a whole and the countries within. Okay, on that note, I think that be sufficient, and let me stop here.